Hey, thanks again for tuning in to the Get Rowdy Tech YouTube channel. Today we're just going to go over some very basic kube control commands and a few concepts. So from our Ubuntu system here, let's just do a quick kubectl get namespaces. Now you note we have created a main namespace beyond the default namespaces that come with installing a Kubernetes cluster. So the first thing that we probably want to do is set our current context real quick. And so what do I mean by that? Well, let's do a quick deployment and express what I mean by that. So I'm going to go over deployments in more detail. I'm just wanting to express the context statement here first. Alright, so you can see that our Nginx deployment has been created. So let's do a kubectl get deployment. Now notice, no resources are found in default namespace because by default you're in the default namespace. So we need to change that to the main namespace. Alternatively, we could have passed the argument -n equals main in order to look at the deployments in the main namespace. You can see that our Nginx -deploy -1 deployment is actually here. It's just not in the default namespace. But instead of having to go through and type -n equals main every time I'm going to run a command, we're going to change the current context of kubectl. Alright, so the context has been modified. Now let's do a kubectl get deployments again. Note this time I'm not going to pass the -n equals main argument. So setting your current context stops you from having to do the additional typing, assuming you're working in one particular namespace for some amount of time. We could set this back to default at any time, and again, we're not going to get to the deployment because the deployment is deployed in the main namespace, not in the default namespace. Or I can type in -n equals main. So let's go back to setting our current context for kubectl to main. And let's also go ahead and delete this deployment real quick. And you can see that we are in the main namespace, no resources are found, the deployment's been deleted. Let's do a quick kubectl get pods. Note we don't have any pods, we don't have any deployments, we don't have anything running right now in the cluster. Alright, so let's take a look at the Nginx -deploy -1 YAML file. So app version at the moment's not important. You can see that the kind here is deployment. So we're defining this YAML file as a deployment. You can see the name is Nginx -deploy -1. Here's where we're setting the namespace. Namespace : space main. That is what puts it in the main namespace versus the default namespace. Labels are very important in Kubernetes. I'm going to cover labels in an entirely separate video and go into much more detail. You can see replicas here under spec. So this defines the number of pods that your deployment is going to create. For right now, we have it set for 1, so we should end up with 1 pod in this deployment. We'll talk about selectors in another video as well. We'll talk about the containers in another video. There's a lot more detail to go into in all these subjects, but I'm trying to keep this just very basic. So let's go ahead and redeploy the nginx-deploy-1.yaml deployment. And you can see our deployment's been created. You can see here that we have a single pod ending in 2GDRJ. All right, so we're back in the nginx-deploy-1.yaml file. Let's just adjust our replica real quick. We're going to change it from a 1 to a 3. Now, instead of doing a kubectl create-f in the nginx-deploy-1.yaml file, we're going to do a kubectl apply command. You can see now that the deployment shows that there are 3 pods instead of 1, which is what we updated the replica value to. And we can do a kubectl get pods, and you can see that the 2DGRJ pod is still up, but we've added an additional 2 pods, additional 2 replicas. Alright, so this is the first Kubernetes basic concepts and commands video. I'll do additional ones expanding on the things that I've started to talk about today, but I do hope that you found the content helpful. If you have, please go ahead and subscribe and like. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a great day.